everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast. I'm Jody Grunwald. This week I am joined again by my special guest co-host, Quentin Williams. He was interviewed on the podcast on episode 25 and is the CEO and founder of Dedication to Community. Visit dedicationtocommunity.org for more information. Together we interviewed Scott Williams. Scott is an inspiring and incredible spirit. He is executive producer and writer for the top-rated CBS show NCIS. Scott shares a story about how his college dean persuaded him to become an English major and how that advice truly pivoted his life and career. Scott left Yonkers, New York to pursue his dreams in California. He bartended for a while, but then landed some incredible jobs writing feature scripts for Ron Howard, Kevin Costner, and Ray Liotta, which led him to television. Scott has many credits, including writing for and producing shows like Third Watch, Crossing Jordan, Bones, and Castle. Scott is also the co-founder with his wife, Catherine, of Shane's Inspiration, a Los Angeles-based nonprofit organization dedicated to developing inclusive playgrounds around the world. Scott and Catherine started this organization in memory of their son, Shane, who passed away in 1997 from spinal muscular atrophy. From such a difficult time, an incredible organization was born. Please visit inclusionmatters.org to learn more. Scott speaks from the heart. He talks about experiencing imposter syndrome from behind the computer. He also shares a message about not letting worry be your bully. This was truly an incredible interview, and I am so grateful to Scott and Q for their time. Please subscribe to the Today is the Day Changemakers YouTube channel. Stream this podcast on all streaming sites. Like us on Facebook and Instagram at Today is the Day Live It. I am the CEO and co-founder of the Zach G. Aploder Kids Foundation, connecting children and young adults ages 7 to 22 who meet the financial needs requirements with ongoing lessons in dance, acting, instrumental music, and vocal instruction. For more information, visit applaudourkids.org. And for more information about Today is the Day and this podcast, visit todayisthedayliveit.com. Have a great week, everyone.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast. I am Jody Grunwald, and I am so blessed today to be here with two incredible people. And I'm going to say hi to Q Williams. Quentin Williams, how are you today? Q is my special guest co-host. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thank you so much, Jody. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, it's wonderful to have you, and you were on a previous episode, and we had some fun there, and we're going to have a lot of fun today, but I just want everybody to know a little bit more about you. Q is the founder and CEO of Dedication to Community, and that is D2C, the national nonprofit that he established in 2012. Quentin's career in law, professional sports, and leadership consulting culminates in D2C, which delivers skills building workshops and ongoing forums to improve understanding, build relationships and communities through healing, reconciliation, and unity. That is a mouthful, Q, but I feel like it's so little compared to the amount of work that you do in the community. So welcome and congratulations on all the great work you do.
Thank you, Jody. Appreciate it.
No problem. And our very special guest that Q and I are going to interview is Scott Williams. Hi, Scott. How are you? Welcome.
Hi, Jody. Thanks so much for having me. And hi, Q, my brother from another mother over there. How are you, brother?
That's right. Same last name. Never
There you
knew.
go.
Look at that. Look at that.
The Williams hour.
It is. I feel left out now, though. I'm going to have to change all of a sudden.
Jody Williams, try it. The miracles happen.
Yeah, that actually sounds really, really good. I like it. I like the way that goes. But Scott, before we get started, this is the part where I read, and I feel like it's so important to read the bios from my incredible guests because there's a lot of work that goes into the words on a piece of paper. So graduating SUNY Cortland, and many years studying acting, writing, and bartending in New York City and Los Angeles. Scott, from Yonkers, is a Yonkers native, landed his first writing assignment in 1995 and has been deeply blessed ever since. Writing feature scripts for Ron Howard, Kevin Costner, and Ray Liotta ultimately led him to television when Scott was hired to write an episode for NYPD Blue, which I remember, I loved that show, which earned him a place on the staff of Brooklyn South in 1997. Since then, he's written and produced many shows, including Third Crossing Jordan, Bones, Castle. And for the last 11 seasons, he served as the executive producer on CBS top-rated show NCIS. And Scott, correct me if I'm wrong. Did you come into that show in its 9th season? Is that correct?
I did. I got there in the 9th year, assuming, okay, this thing might have another year or two left in it. And I'm in my 11th season right now. It's been a gift that just keeps giving. It's a great place to work. We could talk about that a bit later. But yeah, season 9, I thought, all right, boy, no show goes 9 seasons. I had never been on a show previous to that went on that long. So look at us.
Incredible. But then your bio goes on to do some other incredible things. So Scott is also the co-founder of Shane's Inspiration, inclusionmatters.org, a Los Angeles-based nonprofit organization dedicated to developing inclusive playgrounds around the world and providing education programs teaching tolerance and inclusion. Scott and his wife, Catherine, founded Shane's Inspiration in memory of their son, Shane, who passed away in 1997 from spinal muscular atrophy. Today, Shane's Inspiration has opened 72, I want to say that again, 72 inclusive playgrounds throughout the United States and in Canada, in Mexico, Ecuador, Israel, and Russia, with over 55 more in development. Having lost both his father and sister to cancer, Scott also serves as an advisory board president for We Spark, an LA-based nonprofit that provides support and programs for patients and their families dealing with cancer. And you can visit www.wespark.org, and for inclusionmatters.org for Shane's Inspiration. We will touch base on more of both of those organizations. Truly incredible, the path that you have created for yourself, and kudos to you and super congratulations.
Thank you very, very much for all that. I'm super lucky to have married well. My wife is I tend to, let her perform the miracles, and I get to come home from work every day and say, "What happened today, honey?" But thank you for that. No, it's been a blessed life for sure. Lots of ups and downs, but we've all got those. I've learned.
Yeah. And please let me say that I'm very, very sorry for your loss. I know from myself how you can turn a loss into something great in someone's honor. And what you've done in your son's honor is just incredible, how you're helping other kids who are living with special needs.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's get started, Q. How did you two Williams men get to meet each other?
Well, years after I graduated, because Q's much younger than me, years after, I heard this story of the legend of Mike Williams, the great Cortland High School running back, who went on to fame at Boston College, and then had this remarkable career in the FBI and in law enforcement and law school and everything else. No, actually, it was I'd heard about him. After I'd graduated, I'd heard about these great teams, because we weren't so great, to be honest. We were sort of a ragtag bunch of blue-collar kids, led by a wonderful coach named Don DiMatteo, the late great Don DiMatteo. It was high school was incredibly formative for me, because I wasn't much of an athlete as a kid, much to my father's chagrin, until he finally said, "Scotty, you're a big kid. Why don't you just give sports a shot?" And thankfully, I was able to start playing football and lacrosse in high school. And I had some very patient coaches like Tom Paradiso and then Don DiMatteo. When he took over as head football coach, he managed to mold me into, if not a highly competitive athlete like Q, at least into someone that would bust his ass and try really hard for his fellow teammates. And really, I was taught how to. Not just not just how to win, but frankly, that I could win at all, which was a wonderful lesson that's helped me through life. And then, for years after, I went to school 4 hours away up in SUNY Cortland. And yeah, I would hear, I'd go back to visit from time to time. And I do remember this dynamic running back out there who shared my last name. Who went on to great things, but then obviously you get busy with life, and we were never actually in touch, but years later, through mutual friends and some teachers, through social media, managed to connect Q and I, and we became fast friends, and had a lovely dinner here a few months ago. And you just sort of know when you meet someone, especially someone that's as accomplished and that you admire so much as I do Q, it's like, and he's been nothing but generous to me as well. So, I like to think I hope he considers us kindred spirits, because I certainly consider him such, so.
Definitely. Yeah. So Yonkers has a lot of talent. So Yonkers, New York, is a place that's flooded with talent. The issue has always been that the talent hasn't always had the opportunity to meet its potential. And so there are a lot of folks who are still standing on corners in Yonkers who are just flooded with talent, who never really found their place, but they're brilliant people. And so I always knew that, but I didn't have for those who made it, who actually did something, I didn't always have a connection with those who made it out of Yonkers. We have some pretty special people who came out of Yonkers. And so one day I'm on social media and Gail O'Rourke is talking about Scott Williams. And then Dan DiMatteo, who was the coach at Yonkers up until recently, he's talking about Scott Williams. I'm like, Scott Williams, like, he went to Gorton High School. Like, this is crazy that we don't know each other. And so I don't know if it was me, or I think I just sent a message to you or something and just introduced myself, because to have somebody of Scott's caliber come out of Yonkers, come out of Gorton High School, and he's like 4 years older than me, so he's not much older than me, and not know him, I thought was an atrocity. So I said, we have to know each other, and such a blessing, such a blessing.
Well, I'm so glad you reached out, buddy, because it's been a blessing to me as well. But you're absolutely right about Yonkers too. You know, it was in the 70s growing up, you know, an extremely multiracial community. You know, it was, and that football team was made up of very tough Italian, Polish, Black, Hispanic, you know, like just all tough blue collar kids. There was nobody whose father wasn't working or mother, but both parents worked in the house, in my house for sure. But you know, there was nobody who was born with a silver spoon coming out of Yonkers, or at least at our high school. So that was sort of a bonding effect. And it's funny, but I remember when I was in grade school, even, you know, there were some race riots, but you know, there was some racial problems there in the early 70s. But by the time I got there in 78, and I don't know, it's just something I had not experienced. I mean, obviously it's something that you're always aware of, keenly aware of, differences. But sports was the great unifier, you know, and I just had some amazing teammates that I'm still in touch with to this day. And you know, that to me is why I'll always point to my coaches in terms of opening my eyes to a world and a neighborhood, or multiple neighborhoods that I had not had set foot on before, that I suddenly set foot on, and I just got to recognize, like, these are teammates, these are friends, we're not so different, we're very much alike. So that's what Yonkers, and growing up in a place like Yonkers. It's funny, we had a kid in I remember we were talking some racial issues in a college class I was in, and this woman raised her hand in the back. She goes, I don't know, we didn't have any racial problems in my school. And we were like, well, how many Black people did you have there? She goes, 2. And it's like, well, there you go. But having Yonkers, you know, having Gorton, you know, where at least half our team was you know, a person of color, it was great. It was fantastic. And I'm just so grateful that I got that education early in life. So.
You know, I want to go back to what you were talking about, and that for me, the word connection, you know, just always, we have always looked for a common denominator, right? As humans, to connect with someone else, right? That's what binds us. And for you, like you said, it's sports and Yonkers. And if you tell somebody that is from Yonkers, even if you meet them in Alaska and you tell them, oh, I'm from Yonkers and they're from Yonkers, all of a sudden there's this connection. It doesn't matter that you're standing in the middle of the glacier in Alaska. Right. There is this connection about Yonkers, and that just brings people together. And I think that's incredible that you have that. But I think that also, there was something else I wanted to mention, is that Q, you reached out to Scott a lot of times we sit and we want to reach out to other people because we feel like there might be something between us, but we're not sure if that other person will pick up the phone or answer the email, and it holds us back. But can you imagine if you two didn't connect? So just my message to the listeners, and if there's anything you want to add, is if there is that person you want to reach out to and you want to connect with someone, don't just stop yourself out of fear that they're going to reject you, because if you don't do it, you'll never know. Anything you both would want to add to something like that?
That's a wonderful point, Jody. I would say that, connection is something that all of us crave. And even if, no matter if you think, if you look at somebody and kind of go, they're busy, or I don't know, they look kind of like curmudgeonly. Maybe they're not into socializing, and they may even give you the brush off early. But I've learned over time that connection is what we all crave. It's actually to me, the greatest remedy for depression, for isolation, obviously. But, those times where even I've just been, if I'm having a bad day at home and my wife and my daughter are out and I'm just, I'm on my own, I'm pissed off about something. It's like literally going out to like the supermarket and saying hi to the checkout lady provides you a connection that puts you back in the universe and makes you feel good again. And boy, if you reach out to people that you've had a past connection with, I do what I used to be during COVID. We started a weekly Zoom with some college buddies of mine and I. We didn't intend for it to become weekly, but it became see you next Saturday because we had nowhere else to be. We were all being quarantined. Now we're down to like once a month, but there's like 37 guys that we've cycled in and out of this thing, and women who have ducked in and out of this thing, who just say, oh man, I'm so glad you reached out. And these are people I hadn't talked to in 40 years, who I thought, they're too busy, or I didn't know them that well in college. Well, now I know them a lot better because we've been Zooming together. So everyone needs human connection, no matter what, of any quality, just to kind of, to source their own humanity in some fashion, I think. So always, never hesitate to reach out. And I'm so, again, grateful to Q for having done so for me. So my life's better because Q reached out to me.
Same here. And on both ends of that spectrum, like, Scott gets a lot of just out of the blue cold calls, cold emails, Facebook messages, people calling them. I get my share of them. And how you respond, how you respond tells a lot about you as a person. And even though we have the Yonkers connection, we have the Gordon connection, still a lot of people are calling because they want something. So it makes you a little bit numb or raw to that kind of thing. And, we were able to connect, and it was now over time, we have built a friendship because he was ready to accept it. And that's, I do what I can with that as well. I don't just cast stuff off as, oh, that's another person who just wants something from me. I always want to figure out if there is truly an opportunity to connect with the people.
Yeah, that's great. We're of a certain age as well, where a lot of our contemporaries, our friends, have kids or nieces or nephews who want to be in law enforcement or want to be in showbiz, and we're the friends they reach out to. Like, hey, I know somebody. Hey, Scotty, I got my daughter's graduating college. Do you need a, And I get a lot of those calls, and I love hearing from the people. And listen, if I can't help, I do. If it's possible for me, I wish I could hire everybody, but even just helping to point people in the right direction, or just like toward the first step, tends to be enough for people. Just to know that they're not stepping in blindly, and I can say, avoid that, go toward that sort of thing. So that helps a lot. But yeah, I hear you. It's refreshing when you get people. You didn't ask anything of me. I was asking of him, like, tell me more about your dedication to community, and he wanted to know about more what I was doing. So we weren't pushing anything on each other except just curiosity about what the other was doing. So.
Yeah, authenticity is so important. And that's part of this podcast, is that I just want to share stories of incredible human beings who are making a difference every single day with nothing else, right? I think that, and that way, those people who are out there who may feel stuck, or, may need a little bit of a tap on the shoulder to say, hey, there's somebody who came before you that knows how to do it, has done it, and they can share that with you. One of the other thing is vulnerability and judgment are two of the things I talk a lot about on the podcast, Scott. People are more vulnerable and we are less judgmental, and we open up the door for more connection. And those are the things that are everything about Changemakers. So I appreciate what you just shared, because
Beautifully said. That's exactly right.
Thank you. Thank you. So you both got to meet each other and now have become fast friends. But Scott, I really want to know, so when you were in Yonkers and sports and all of that, what did you really want to be when you grew up? What was the path you thought you were going to wind up on?
Well, loving sports as I did, I kind of my possibilities were somewhat narrow. So I kind of thought, well, I'll not narrow. I thought what I loved was football and lacrosse. So I said, I'm going to coach. I loved my mentors. I loved Matteo and Paradiso, and I said, I'll do what they do. And but then I got to Cortland, SUNY Cortland, which was known as a big phys ed major school. And was suddenly, instead of taking, classes in sports, I was being dealt freshman psychology and freshman bio and freshman English, and I promptly flunked out. So I promptly I had a little too much fun at college. I had to say Animal House is the film that had come out that summer, and I kind of went, shit, that's college. I got this licked. So but we got that first report card back, and my father was like, you're kidding me, right? And it was a 1.09. I mean, it was straight out of the Dean's scene in Animal House. And I said, this has to be a mistake, because I had no idea I'd done that badly. But the Dean thankfully looked at my paper when I went up to appeal, either clean out my dorm room and join the Army, or maybe I don't know, do what. I had no idea yet, but either clean out my room or get a second chance. And thankfully, the Dean looked at my report card and went, "Oof, geez, an F, 2 Ds, and an A. Well, you got an A in freshman English. Why don't you come back and be an English major?" And I was like, "Sure, yeah, whatever, great." And and I asked him, different things about English majors. And when I went out, my father was killing his, his second pack of Marlboros in the parking lot. And he said, "What'd he say?" And I'm like, "You let me back in." He's like, "Oh, thank God." Because he hadn't gone to college. He was an Air Force man, but he just knew how much I loved it. And he just loved everything about the spirit of it and everything else. So, but then I just said, and all I had to do is switch my major to English. And he goes, "What can you do as an English major?" I said, "Well, the Dean says I could go to law school, or I could go to medical school even." He goes, "You couldn't be a gym teacher. What are you going to do how are you going to be a lawyer?" But thankfully, English major kept me in school, and I learned some things about putting things on the page, which I had no idea would serve me later in life. But I was pretty good at writing essays, and I joke that, I barely read the books, but I could bullshit my way through a term paper like nobody. But I managed to get through college, but my secret burning desire, for whatever motivated me, but ever since I was a little kid, I loved the movies. I loved TV. I'd come home from school and watch the 4:30 movie on Channel 7, and they'd have the Rat Pack on, and they'd have all these great movies. And I just remember thinking, I want to do that. I want to take a shot at being an actor. So in going to Cortland, saying, getting out and saying you want to be an actor is like saying you want to be an astronaut. They're like, what the hell are you talking about? Especially in 1983. But I managed to, and I was always, by the way, bartending. I learned how to bartend in college. And I remember a professor, actually one of the ones who gave me a D in freshman sociology, said, so he came into the bar one day and just said, "So what's your plan?" I said, "Well, actually, I'm going to go to New York and try to become an actor." And everybody else had rolled their eyes, and he went, "I could see that." And I was like, "Really?" And then he goes, "And this craft," meaning my bartending, he goes, "This will serve you well down there." And I remember thinking, like, dude, I'm going to be a movie star in 2 years. What are you talking about? Well, obviously I moved to New York and had to pay bills and got bartending jobs and really enjoyed them in my 20s, and didn't enjoy them so much in my early 30s, because I literally went on to a 12-year bartending career from college to New York to Los Angeles, where I was, as an actor in New York, auditioning, doing plays, all that stuff, getting some success, like some commercial work, some soap opera work. But literally I would finish an episode of, playing a cop on All My Children, and then walk up Columbus Avenue and go to my bar job at night. So it was this weird melding of worlds. And then in 1990, I was about to turn 30, and some friends and I that had done a play together thought they came to me and said, we're thinking about moving to LA. What do you think? And I was like, well, if I was ever going to give the chance, if I was ever going to give acting a shot, I should at least try LA. So we moved out here. I remember New Year's of 1990 was my last night in New York, living in New York, and moved to LA and had a little more success here acting wise, but not so much that I could stop bartending because I still needed to pay the bills. And then founding a theater company with some friends of mine and I out here, I started writing plays, and it came kind of naturally to me, more so even than acting. Long story short, the writing ended up being a much smoother road than the bumpy road of acting, and so I just went on to pursue that. I originally set out to write my Rocky, write a movie that I could star in or that I could be in. And then after a while, I sort of lost interest in one and got completely obsessed with the other. So thankfully, if Dean Weber had not said you should be an English major, I'm not sure where I would have been. But that was the journey from high school to Los Angeles and starting to write, which was, I won't say it was easy. It was easier than acting in terms of my success rate, but I got lots and lots and lots of rejection early on and being told I should give it up. But that's what life's all about. You get that everywhere you go. Actually, I was grateful for the ones that told me to give it up because, it just inspires you to prove them wrong.
So true. Just what you said is so true. That one dean who said you could be a writer, if he would have said you're out of here or something else, your life, the trajectory would have been totally different.
When I think of the friendships I would not have had, granted, I would have had other friendships, but I'm fascinated by that whole sliding doors concept, that people come in and out of your life for a reason. And if you hadn't gone through this door or if this hadn't been slammed in your face, the outcomes would not have happened the way they did. Now, again, I think, I'm sure there would have been a trajectory that would have been fine. But boy, I'm awfully glad I'm on the trajectory I am, or I wouldn't have any of the things that I have today. And I don't mean that in a material sense. I mean that in terms of family and love and friends and all that. So, it's tricky. My daughter's 21, and I always, the kids need to experience it on their own, just like I did. I didn't listen to anything my parents said at 21 either, but I try to instill that in her of like, there are no wrong decisions. Just take a path and explore it and see what you think of it. It's the places you'll go talks about that, the decision, the not making a decision is what kills you. The inertia of, should I go left or right? No, I'm just going to stay here. That's the worst. But boy, taking any path, and I'm grateful for the paths that got chosen for me and that I chose. So, and I went down some wrong ones for a while, but I self-corrected.
It's interesting, Scott. You two things that stood out. You said you stayed in New York through New Year's. So as a former bouncer, I know why. I know why, because you were capitalizing on New Year's Eve. The tips from New Year's Eve were going to get you out to California.
Oh yeah.
So there's a reason. There's a strategy behind staying through New Year's. That's
oh, absolutely. I remember that listen, I had some money saved up, but let me make that last $500, at the time at this small bar on the Upper East Side. I think I made $500 and some guy gave me Yankees tickets, which I ended up having to regift, here, so, because I wouldn't be in town for those, because I moved to LA on January 2nd of that year. So just.
And then when you moved to LA, coming from Yonkers to Cortland, back to New York City. Now you're going to LA, which is, it's Hollywood. For East Coasters who are looking at Hollywood, glitz, glamour, all that stuff. Did you experience the loneliness that Hollywood has to offer once you arrive? Because it's the loneliest town I know of. If you're not doing anything, like if you're not successful, it's a lonely place.
Yeah,
if you are, everybody's your friend.
Well, what gets sold on television and in the movies is the glitz and glamour, but this is just a regular place where people are just trying to work. You know what I mean? Because for every movie star, there's like, makeup people and lighting people and set builders and teamsters and painters and, all kinds of people with normal jobs. Plus, I'm not sure exactly what the percentage of people in the industry here are to just regular jobs, to civilian jobs, but there's lots of people out here doing lots of things. But that said, you step out your door in Manhattan and life hits you in the face, man. You are not alone. You are in the world. You step out your door in LA and you have to get in your car and go drive somewhere to find the world and find people to talk to. So yes, it can be an incredibly isolating place. I tell people that all the time of like, it's not like New York where you move to the city, you can step out your door and find the world. Here, you really got to reach out and become more of an extrovert, because there's lots of introverts here that believe me, if you want solitude, you can find it here. But yeah, if you want to make something, you've really got to be a self-starter in many ways. And a lot of, I think, the source of whether it's depression or angst or whatever about the world happens in the quiet moments here, in places like LA, where, yeah, if you're as much as it's happening, going on here, you've kind of got to get in your car to get to it. So it's funny that you should say that, Q, because yeah, you have some friends and family that have firsthand experience at that, and it's shocking because you are led by that dangled carrot of the glitz and glamour and like Hollywood, man, this is going to be the greatest party ever. No, there's a hell of a lot of work that goes into reaching that party, and even when the party happens, it's over, and then you go back home to your quiet house in Valley Village or wherever you happen to live. And you're back to taking out the garbage, you're back to washing dishes, you're back to doing the things that you have to do to live, so very interesting. It's not ever what the picture you have in your head of what it looks like. Granted, friends look, go, oh, wow, listen, I have a great job. I'm not overly or falsely humble about what I've arrived at, but I don't feel any different than I did as a kid or as a 20-something bartending. I still look back at those as the good old days. And so, yeah, I get to keep some rare company with some actors that I've always admired, guys like Mark Harmon that I've always just admired, and how they're coworkers and they're friends. And so that I get is unusual, but Mark Harmon takes out his garbage too. So it's like we're all kind of living our lives as well. So that's
how do you keep that? How do you keep the humility though? Because you've gone through the struggle. You had to create your own theater company, and there were struggles with that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So when you're on a chase for people to know who you are, work with you, be your friend, be in your circle. And now the paradigm shift is that people are now chasing you to be in their circle, to know you, because a lot of them want something, or they just want to be associated. How did you take that transition and remain humble as you are still the same Scott you were back in Yonkers in many ways, just with more access?
I appreciate you thinking so. It is strange because I aspired for so long and heard no for so long that as soon as someone said yes, I went from saying, why not me? Why not me? To the minute someone said yes, I was like, me? What? Why me? I was like, oh shit, I'm getting a yes. I better do this now. And as I've ascended the ranks at this, because again, I feel like I've always sort of been I like the underdog seat. I like the not low expectations, but I like being able to take people by surprise of like, well, he's a new guy. We'll see, we'll see how he does. And I'm just like, yeah, here I come. I'm going to show you. It's when people go, wait, you're a brilliant writer. You're going to come in and fix our show. And I'm like, oh crap. Now people expect things from me because they think I know stuff. But I'll speak as a writer. Writers will relate to this, but I think it's true of almost any profession. It's like, we all have a slight bit of imposter syndrome because, in our minds, we still, remember, eating cornflakes in front of the TV, watching cartoons on Saturday morning. So we've all just, and then suddenly we're thrust into this role where people expect things of us or think we're all that. And And, you know, we know ourselves better than anybody. And we're like, oh shit, they think I know stuff. Okay, I better know stuff. I better have some answers. And with experience that comes, you know, I think I definitely, you know, I rose to that occasion at times in my 20s and 30s, but there were other times that I think I shrunk from it as well. But it's interesting. The title executive producer is one, and in television with writers, you know, the joke is we make very good livings. I won't make any bones about it. I mean, we're very comfortable, but writers are the lesser paid in terms of in television, in terms of actors and movie stars and things like that. But writers, when we work, we do well. And that's the big asterisk, when we work, because there's lots of out of work writers and actors and stuff. But the titles you're given, I was a staff writer, then a story editor, then an executive story editor, then a co-producer, then a supervising, then a producer, then a supervising producer, then a co-executive producer. And we always say they just give you these important titles so they don't have to pay you more. But and then ultimately, when I made executive producer, was the first time that I had experienced on any show talking to crew members and just kind of going, oh yeah, I like that guy, he's a good guy. And they go, yeah, he's good to you. I'm like, what do you mean he's nice? He goes, no, he's nice to you. You're an executive producer. He's not nice to everybody else. I'm like, really? So I had never experienced that before, because in my mind too, that's another of the biggest lessons of life is be nice to everybody. You know, life is too short to be an asshole. It just is. And even if you have to fake it, even if in the moment you want to rip somebody's head off, you just kind of go, not worth it. Just swallow it and kill them with kindness. It almost infuriates them even more than if you give them what they want, which is this. But I had not experienced anybody, you know, the syndrome of, you know, kiss up, kick down. You know, I suddenly was on the side of up, and I'm like, wait, people are kissing up to me? Who the hell am I? I'm a bartender from Yonkers. You know, what do I know? But yeah, it's an adjustment for sure to live into the way that others see you, you know. But also at the same token, all I know how to be is who I am, and you know how to be who you are, and I just find that the more honest I am, the more kind of genuine I am, and the more upfront I am about my own frailties, that tends to put people at ease, and it tends to help people. There's nothing worse than someone that just acts like they have all the answers and that they're never wrong and they never say, I'm sorry. And, you know, unfortunately, that description fits a few of our more recent leaders who, to me, are abhorrent human beings because they just don't know how to relate to normal people and accept the fact that we all have weaknesses and frailties and faults. And the sooner we embrace those, the sooner we acknowledge those. And, you know, I have that little voice in my head, every script. I mean, I've been at television now 25 years, and every script I sit down at, I will reach a point in that script that I painted myself into some corner story-wise. And I think, this is the one where I get found out. This is the one where they figure out it's all smoke and mirrors, and I'm a dummy, and I'm not smart enough to figure this out, and some better writer should be doing this. But the only thing that 25 years experience has given me is a familiarity with and a comfort level with that voice where I'm like, yeah, there it is again. I'll show you. And I prove to that voice that I can work through it. And sometimes, and not always alone either. You know, we have a writing staff for a reason. I'll reach out to people and go, hey, I'm in this place. I can't get out of it. Oh, that's a great idea. Let me take that, you know. And so learning to collaborate with people is also a big feather in your cap in any industry. I think that the right way to do things doesn't always have to be your way. So I'm always reaching out to people. I'll take a good idea from anybody. I got yelled at when I was on Third Watch. I remember we were shooting a scene in a fake police station we were on, and I just loved that show, and it was in New York. And one of the lighting guys said to me, he goes, Scotty, you know what he should say? He should say this. Like he threw a line at me. I'm like, oh, that's great. I'm like, Skip, what about this? And he goes, oh, I love that. And he said the line, and we shot it. And it's like a producer comes to me going like, don't be taking lines from the lighting guy. I'm like, why not? It was a great line. It made the show better. It was funny, you know? So, and plus this guy gets to go home and, you know, watch the show with his wife and kids and go, hey, there's my line. Where's the harm in that? You know, I'm a big proponent of, if you have a chance to make someone's day, do it. You know, the world needs more of that. So I managed to make my show better, make his day, and all that. So it's like I don't have an ego around that. I'll take a good line or a good idea from anywhere. So, but I am digressing because I think your thing was about the adjustment to just ascending, but I'm still adjusting, to be honest. So I think I'll always be adjusting. Yes.
Well, it sounds like you're adjusting in such an incredible way, because not everybody thinks like you do. And, talking about kindness and being able, that's the way I've been brought up. My father used to say, I practice the religion of kindness in all that I do. And, now you have the opportunity to do the same thing that your dean did for you, because people do look up to you and they do see you as the expert. So that one little thing, Scott, that you could say to someone, no matter who it is, the lighting guy, the Starbucks girl, whoever it is, you have that opportunity because of your expertise to change their trajectory. And that, it has to be an incredible feeling as well.
It's nice. I appreciate you thinking so and saying that. It is nice, and I do. The reason I appreciate the journey, and the reason and believe me, I appreciate it more than while I was probably on it. Like we're all still on the journey, but there were the days back then where I was like, oh, when is this going to happen for me? When am I going to stop bartending? But I'm so grateful for those days. David Milch gave me my first job in NYPD Blue. He said, your writing's fine, but I like that you attended bar for 12 years. I like that you've seen people at their worst. You've got characters in your head that some kid coming out of film school in his first year, they don't have that life experience or for things to write about. So the journey is all that. So when I'm able to advise people who are up and coming and frustrated and aren't where they wanted to be yet, that's the only hope I can offer is my own journey, and just say, just keep pounding the rock, man. Just keep. It's lonely and it's hard and it's infuriating at times. And maybe it won't pay off, but some other thing will happen that will come as a result of your hard work. I wanted to be a movie star. I was going to be an actor, and I had to adjust my dream a little bit to kind of go, you know what? Maybe I won't be a movie star, but I could write words that they say, and I got such a kick out of that. I always describe it as, for the first time, 2 pages into the first thing I ever wrote, I thought it was the first time I ever heard the applause come from within. I was enjoying what I was doing. I didn't need an audience to tell me it was good. Now, granted, once we put the play on its feet and I watched an audience respond, it was like heroin. I was like, I was hooked. So, I wanted more of that. So I just took every screenwriting course that I could and basically bartended every night and wrote every day for 3 years before I finally got, a nibble of professional work. But yeah, that's the life experience that I'm grateful that I have, that I'm able to pass on to people that are in a hard place in their life. Because one of the things also I learned about when I've gotten in touch with people like you and made friends and reunited with old college buddies, hardships, you think you're the only one when it's just you, and you're going through this gauntlet that is life. And you hit up Facebook, where I always say people only post their greatest hits. They don't post their B-sides. They don't post. They post me and my beautiful family and us succeeding, and you're sitting at home going, my life sucks and things aren't happening for me right now. But I forget where I was going with that. But the hardships to me is the part when you get to see talk to other people, where you get to realize this is what it was, that you're not alone in this, that everybody, no one is immune from hardships, from the gauntlet. Everybody's dealing with, death, divorce, disease, sadly, teenagers. Like everybody's having a time where, I'm struggling to raise my teenage daughter or whatever, or we're struggling at a time when we lost our son, and you think, God, I'm so alone in the world, and why is everybody else just skating through life unscathed? And then you get to talk to people and you recognize, oh, nobody is. Everybody's dealing with something that they could either completely cave to, or that they're forced to rise above. And And so once you recognize that, and again, it's the people that necessarily don't acknowledge that I'm sometimes go, dude, you gotta get real, because there's some people that won't they're so invested in the appearance that they don't talk about the dark stuff in their closet, where I'm just like, man, let it all hang out. It's a very personal thing. I work for this, I'm on the board of this cancer charity, and I've known my dad, my sister, one of my best friends all passed to cancer. And, I know some folks that get cancer and they don't tell people. I don't want anybody to know. It's a very personal thing. And I get that. It's a very personal thing. Shit, if I have cancer, fucking everybody's going to know about it. It's like, I want everyone, it's like, it's just the opposite to me. It's like, bring me as much support as you possibly can. I'll need this, God forbid, I'm knocking wood now, but I just, and I feel that way about life's problems as well. I don't wear a t-shirt saying, ask me about my cranky teenager, but when people talk to me about their hardships, I'm able to say, well, in my experience, or you're not alone in this. And when I do meet people who go, let me tell you about my daughter in her teenage years. And P.S., my 21-year-old daughter is wonderful and coming along beautifully. But there were some years there in the early teens. But there's nothing better than when you meet somebody going, oh, thank God, you too. I thought you had a picture perfect life, but you're going through shit too. Okay, good. I feel better now. I mean, there's great value in that, in learning that I shouldn't go to commiseration necessarily, but just recognizing that you're not the only one that's doing battle with life, or going through the gauntlet. Everybody goes through it.
I think you just circled back to what we said before, which was perfect connection, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not about commiseration. It's about just wanting to feel connected, that you're not alone in that specific situation. And the other piece is, like you said, not enough people, I think, share their pain, because if they did, we may not sit in that pain for as long as some people do, because nobody else will understand them. Or, I don't know if you've heard this, I'm sure you might have, it'll be a sign of weakness. And if we share pain, that's weak.
Yeah.
And that's not, unfortunately, society has done that, but that's not real. That is not the truth.
Again, the people that I find are, the most weak, and again, I shouldn't judge in that fashion, but are the ones that don't say they're sorry, or that don't admit their flaws or their frailties. It's like that. To me, that's just like, man, you are so committed to this winner. I'm a winner. I always win. I don't lose, and I don't apologize because I'm always right. That to me is the biggest, the weakest.
It's their ego.
The weakest person imaginable is just the one that can't admit their humanity.
Normally that's their ego, and if they have to give that means that they feel less than, and it's an unfortunate piece. It is.
I get it. Yeah.
I really do want to talk to you about Shane's inspiration. The work that you're doing there, I think, is just incredible. And would you share with us about the programming? And I know that you also have an amazing website that I visited, and it's just incredible things that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Well, my wife and I founded Shane's. We were married in '96. We were in our mid to late 30s, so we were all about having a child as quickly as we could. And so on our honeymoon, we conceived Shane, who would be born in '97. And unbeknownst to us, he was born with something called spinal muscular atrophy. He was essentially born paralyzed from about the mid-nose down. And it's something that had happened in utero. There are much crueler versions of SMA, and there are actually greater strides made now in SMA in terms of life longevity and quality of life. But at the time in 1997, I think they'd only isolated the gene for SMA maybe a year before Shane was born. So, but there are crueler versions where, like, you bring home a healthy baby, and then over time, like, paralysis starts to occur from the toes on up. But with Shane, it was a very accelerated case. I think it was type 2, or I forget, Werdnig-Hoffman. And in utero, he essentially lost his ability to move or breathe on his own. So we spent, 13 bittersweet, nightmarish, beautiful, the gauntlet days of in the neonatal intensive care unit at Cedars-Sinai with Shane's, where the amazing staff kept him alive. And we tried every faith healing witch doctor. we pulled out all the stops for any miracle that would have saved him, but ultimately we lost him at 13 days. So had Shane lived, would have spent his life in a wheelchair. That was the best case scenario that we were offered. They said the prognosis is, this was even before they knew what he had, but they said, we just know that at the very least, he's going to live his life in a wheelchair. So my niece, who was 6 or 7 at the time, my sister back in New York had said to my nieces, well, Shane is here, but he's got some issues and he's going to live his life in a wheelchair. And my niece, as a 6 or 7-year-old, just went, she goes, well, what's the problem? We'll just build ramps everywhere. So when we heard that, I still get emotional even saying that, because it was such a beautiful, simple fix. And unfortunately, we lost Shane. But one of the things that we had discovered was this glaring inequity that was in the area of inclusion and of disability and being able to play. We discovered that playgrounds, the Americans with Disabilities Act, had been passed just a few years earlier in 1990, and it basically is the reason you see widened bathroom stalls and ramps on street corners, which is wonderful. But in the area of playgrounds at the time, you basically then had a cement ramp leading to a sand moat with play equipment inside, so that a kid in a wheelchair could actually go to the playground and watch other kids play, which is why you rarely, if ever, saw anyone in a wheelchair go to the playground. So my wife, the force of nature that she is, took it upon herself to say, I want to build a playground where Shane could have played with his able-bodied friends had he lived. So through research and through some connections that we didn't know we had, some people, when you lose a child, everyone says, let me know what I can do. And obviously there's nothing they can do. But a year later, my wife we'd suffered a couple of miscarriages and just decided, what, we've lost enough this year. Let's give your body and our minds a rest and do something constructive. So we set out to build the first playground in Los Angeles, where that would be inclusive for children of all abilities. So, from the ground up, we sort of, pitched city council and got some advocates on our side. And all those people that said, let us know we can do, we said, we have something you can do. And they all stepped up. So we raised the money and found the land. And within 2 years, we opened the first playground in Griffith Park called Shane's Inspiration. From that, we thought we were done. One of the side things that I always like, the story I like telling, was it was a great joy seeing kids in wheelchairs and in walkers playing unassisted on some of these things, where they could actually go up these ramps that led to play structures that they could actually play on, and rubberized surfacing and different things that gave kids access that they never had before. But I also had an older gentleman in a wheelchair come up, and he said, I was paralyzed in a car accident as a kid. He said, the problem with that was when I was raising my own kids, I couldn't take them to the playground because I couldn't get there. He said, now, thanks to this one playground, he said, I can take my grandchildren and actually play with them. So it was like, something that we had not expected in the area of disabled adults and, veterans coming back who had suffered disability. So, and then again, like I said, we thought we were done at one, but then we had someone from the west side of Los Angeles that said, it's a 45-minute commute. My son loves playing with his able-bodied brothers, a little boy named Aiden, who was profoundly disabled and in a wheelchair, but he had 2 older brothers, and she goes, he can play here with them, but it's just a tiring drive. How do we get one in our neighborhood? So we were like, well, okay, we have the infrastructure in place. So we the designs that we'd come up with and stuff. And so we helped them build the second one, which is called Aiden's Place on the west side of Los Angeles. And like I said, it just snowballed. It took on a life of its own. We have an amazing, board and staff over there. Small staff, very grassroots. Not maybe a handful of paid employees, maybe, because every dollar goes toward the design and the instruction, the sort of hand holding with communities around the country and around the world, in terms of how to build these parks, how to make them most inclusive, with companies sometimes that will donate, but a lot of it is, again, grassroots dollars. A lot of these things are built with $5 donations as much as $5,000 donations. So cut to 20 some years later, yeah, like you said in the bio, and I appreciate that, we're up to 72 parks worldwide. we have education programs that teach kids about, for myself, growing up in Yonkers, I don't know about you, but like, my parents were always very, they'd send to Jerry's kids every Labor Day, but if you saw a kid in a wheelchair, you kind of went the other way because it was too sad, it was too awkward, it was too weird, you didn't know what to say, to the point where when I would learn that Shane would be in a wheelchair had he lived, I was thinking, oh God, what lesson are you teaching me? Because I had this phobia. Well, once we started Shane's Inspiration, I was suddenly surrounded every day with lots of kids in wheelchairs, and I learned a very quick comfort. And my daughter has been raised now. She shadows kids at schools who have special needs because she has a comfort level with kids with disabilities because they're just kids. There's nothing different, So they just have a tougher time maybe accessing certain things than some people do. But we now call it, different abilities, or we don't even go with disabilities anymore. It's just different. But at any rate, it's been the gift that's just kept on giving. It's taken on a life of its own. To be honest, busy enough with work and with being on the board at WeSpark as well. It's like I'm not even as apprised. My wife and I are busy with other things. The staff has sort of, taken the thing over. The name has been expanded to be called Inclusion Matters by Shane's Inspiration. They put the mission right up in front, but it can still be reached at inclusionmatters.org. I still call it Shane's Inspiration, just out of force of habit, and I guess just in dedication to my son. But Inclusion Matters by Shane's Inspiration is just continuing, even through the pandemic, to do some incredible work and bringing these playgrounds and these education programs, like I said, teaching, as I was talking about myself, my own fears around disability, teaching these programs to kids about disability and connecting them at our playgrounds with, buddying up a buddy system of like an able-bodied kid with a disabled kid and getting them to like get some comfort level around kids with different abilities. And so that's the gift for us that, if you had told me 30 years ago, you're going to be doing this, we were not in the playground business. We had no idea about any of it. But, Shane in his short life, was sent to illuminate us to this glaring inequity that inclusion didn't matter as much as we hope it does now. So that's sort of like our mission in life, and that's kind of given our lives obviously far greater meaning than any shitty little TV show I could write on. Not to call NCIS a shitty little TV show. I mean, all the shows I've written on. It's just TV. The bigger picture is really what's been the most rewarding. So the things like that I've been able to do it. And listen, as I diminish the showbiz aspect of my life, it's been a great help as well, because I've gotten to nothing but support from the people I work with, from the networks that have broadcast those shows, from the crew, from the cast. I still get calls from Inclusion Matters going, Scott, anybody in your cast willing to be our grand marshal for the walk this year? And they always step up. Somebody from the cast always steps up. So, I've been very fortunate in that regard as well, to have access to people with means in the job that I have, so that are able to support us. So.
Platform to purpose. You're using your platform for a purpose, and you weren't born just to be a writer. You were born to do something with your skill set of writing that would accentuate and bring to the surface your purpose. So that's what this is all about. Really impressive.
Well, I'm going to write that down, because that's way better said than I could have said it. So thank you. That is how I feel. That describes it perfectly. It's if I didn't have this platform, we might not have been able to move the mountains we've moved in so short a time. But this whole thing has been, like I said, built by average folks with small donations, with small involvement, people that can sometimes just donate their effort. Donate their time. That's one of the lessons that's come out of this for me as well, is that when I tell people who are kind of coming up in the business and having bad days and wondering when their number's gonna be called, I just say, a version of I know it sounds trite, but pull your head out of your own ass and do something for someone else. Like, because inevitably, if at the very least it makes you feel better, but at the very most you could meet people that you have no idea how they could improve your life in the future, with the things they can do for you. I can't tell you how many people have volunteered for us at Shane's over the years and said, oh, I never would have met so-and-so, which led me to this thing. It's like, it's sort of like networking, but some really good deed is coming out of it as well. And like I said, at the very least, if you don't meet people that, can help you career-wise, you'll feel a hell of a lot better about yourself. And when you feel better about yourself, your work and your ethic tends to improve as well. So there's nothing like, serving others to help yourself, if that makes sense. It's just, it never fails. It never fails.
I think that, and I want to add gratitude to that as well, because you, Scott, if I didn't meet Q, and I'm grateful that Q brought you onto the podcast, and I got, now I'm able to share your amazing story. I think gratitude, even for the little things, it just kind of grows. One little speck of gratitude just adds and grows. It's just, it's just like a seed, right? So it gets and it grows.
Yeah, and it helps you right your ship, because listen, there's plenty of days I'm suffering at the computer, or I'm dealing with something at home, or there's something, I'm overwhelmed or whatever, where I lose gratitude, where at that moment I'm like, no, my life, why is it got to be so hard? And then, you right your ship by just remembering, by counting your blessings, by just going, God, I just have so much more to be grateful for, than I do to be upset about. So gratitude is an enormous tool for people to never forget about. And again, even in the moments when you don't feel you have much to be grateful for, you got something, and you can always find something,
Always. Before I ask you the last question, and I'm so grateful for your time, I want to also say, though, the work that you're doing and the writing that you're doing, for those people who may be having those bad days, or those people who may be feeling down and depressed, they're turning on those shows that you're writing for, and they're using them as a way to escape and a way to become part of those stories. So, you're doing, on one hand, the incredible work you're doing for Shane's Inspiration, but on the other hand, I just want to also say that the work you're doing and the writing you're doing is helping people in a whole different way as well. So that's really important too.
That's really kind of you to say. I will say I take no small measure of joy out of that. When I write a line of dialogue, or when I write a story about, anything, and again, I'm dealing with, on NCIS, we deal with lots of, dead Navy people, in the real NCIS. They don't deal with a single murder in the year, but we're a TV show, so we deal with a murder every week. But in solving that murder, if I'm able to put in some lines that illuminate, or that illuminate the human condition and make people feel better about their journeys, but there's nothing better than having those lines quoted back to me. Or people, if I get on Twitter and see like people say, oh my God, that scene where this happened, I cried. And I'm like, okay, good. Because I remember, generally, if I cry in front of the computer while I'm writing it, I know it's going to go pretty well. So there's nothing better than crying at my computer as I type it out, going, where the hell did I come up with that? To then having the actors do it and having them go, wow, good shit. And then, having it go out over television, and then seeing Twitter people go, oh my God, I was bawling. I'm like, wow, that's pretty awesome. That's a trip. I got to say, that's something, that's something I'll never get used to or take for granted, because it's shocking to me every time. I'm like, oh wait, this really does get out to millions of people, and they really do pay attention and listen. So I'm grateful for that, to have that platform.
It's kind of like you have this magic wand, you take everybody on the journey with you, and it's pretty incredible. You don't realize that you hold that wand, but you do. Typing it out, that's your wand. So
that said, believe me, I write plenty of scenes that make me cry, that people don't salute and go, this is dumb. So I cry then for a different reason, but that's, but no, when it works, there's nothing better, but it doesn't always work. So you got to just keep stepping to the plate and taking your swings,
So Q, is there anything else before I get to my famous last question I ask all of my guests, that you want to say, any other question for Scott before I ask him that last question?
I just want to make a comment to your professor who looked you in the eye and said, yeah, I can see that. Thank you to that professor. Because that professor could have easily have said, oh, that's I don't know if you want to do that kind of thing. And maybe that would have shifted things for you in some way. So I thank that professor.
I appreciate that. Devereaux Kennedy, God bless him. I think he's still around up there. It's a little like the improv exercise where they always say in improv, there's yes and. When you're improving with somebody, you don't answer a question with a no, because it kills the scene. It ends. Boom. There's nowhere to go with no. If someone says like, I can't do an improv scene here on the fly or whatever, but it's like, hey Q, you flew a dragon last night. You don't turn around and go, no, I didn't fly a dragon. You go, yes, I did. And the dragon flew me to this place where he saw you yes and each other. And that keeps the thing going. Yes anding people in life, even if they're going down a path that maybe you wouldn't go down, or in your head, even if you think like no, and it's this big one in parenting too, because I want to go like, oh Grace, don't do that. Don't tell my daughter, I'll be like, yes, and you can do this too, or that, it's yes or yes and, but yes and tends to open up worlds for people. So this guy, he might have sat there going, this kid is so full of shit, he's going to be an actor, but he went, I could see that, which was his yes and, because it just gave me a, wow, someone really? You think I could? Oh, okay. Well, one person thinks I can. And it changed everything. So I would tell people to yes and people as often as you can. So
I truly
Go
believe
ahead, Jody.
I was just going to say, I truly believe everybody we meet is either our teacher or a student or both, depends upon the conversation. So
100%.
no. So Scott, my last question that I ask every single guest, if you knew then what you know now, what would you tell your younger self?
Yeah, you asked me that in the beginning to think about, and the only thing I keep kind of coming up to, and it's a little hollow because I do it now, because it's the human, again, it's part of being human, but I think I just would have told my younger self to worry less. I think I just would have told my younger self that that if you just continue to work hard and believe in yourself, that everything tends to work out for the best. And it doesn't necessarily work out maybe the way you pictured it. Again, I'll refer back to parenting. A great thing I heard recently, bless you. A great thing I heard recently was, I wish I'd heard it when my daughter was in her troubled teen years, but I heard it very recently and I was like, oh, well, that's really helpful. But, expectations that you have in your kids or in your own life and your career. Someone had said, around parenting, it's like, you're trying to raise this great apple tree. You're trying to turn your kid into this great apple tree, but your kid is a peach pit. They're going to be a peach tree. They're not going to be an apple tree. They're going to be a peach tree. So, adjusting your expectations about your kids, but then also adjusting your expectations about your own life. Yes, there was a time in the 80s when in my 20s where I thought, if I can't be an actor, I'll die. Well, then I discovered writing and I went, I like this too. Maybe I won't die if I don't do that. Maybe I'll do this. So not being rigid by being somewhat fluid and by being, not just blindly like, no, success must look like this. If you manage to cast those rigid beliefs aside, things tend to work out. So yeah, if I could have told my younger self, I'd say, just keep plugging away. It's all going to work out, because obviously we worry about that. But like I said, I'm an old man now and I still sit there going, ugh, what's the world going to be like in 10 years, 20 years? What's going to be, and you worry and you fret and all that stuff. It's like, life's going to show up whether you worry or not. So just try not to, it's such a colossal waste of time, worry. My daughter has a song she plays in the car with a great line, and it, worry's a bully. Worry's a bully. It's just like, it beats you up. It's just there to threaten you and stop you from doing things because you worry so much. So I try not to let worry be a bully anymore. But that's the gauntlet I'm on now, is to not worry so much. But asking me that question, though, to be honest, I hadn't thought of it that way. But it's helpful to know that I probably would have told my younger self to worry less.
The quote from Gandhi, there is nothing that wastes the body like worry. and one who has any faith in God should be ashamed to worry about anything whatsoever.
That's beautiful. Wow.
Well, it's going to happen anyway. Why worry about it?
Yeah.
Things are going to happen, and I've taken that to heart.
Yeah.
When it comes to worry as well.
That's beautiful. Well, I hadn't heard that from Gandhi. My God.
Me neither. Me neither. Wow.
He was a smart guy, that Gandhi. You know, I don't care what anybody.
Very true. Very true.
Very smart man.
And so are you, Scott. I mean, I've been writing little things down here that you've been sharing, and thank you for your insight and Q, your insight today. It really, truly incredible. I feel so blessed to know both of you and to be able to interview both of you on this podcast that was born December 31st of 2020. So it's a new podcast, and I took a jump and a leap and did all those things you just said before, Scott, and you just keep going, you try not to worry, and then look, here we are. So anything is possible, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. 100%. I'm so grateful to have been here and, give me an opportunity to blather. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And I wish you so well. And I hope you'll come back again and give us an update on all the things that you're doing, because you're doing incredible work.
Anytime. I'm an invite away. Don't be afraid to reach out. I won't not want to hear from you. I'll be glad to hear from you. So
that is so kind. Thank you so much. Q, I love having you as a co-host too. We have to do this some more too.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, Scott. I appreciate you. And Jody, great job.
Love you, brother. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Love you too.
Thank you. I'm going to say what I say at the end of every podcast. And again, Scott, thank you. And Q, thank you. This is my mantra that I say at the end of every podcast. Today is the day. You cannot go back to yesterday, and you do not yet own tomorrow. So what are you going to do today to take one small or large step to get yourself closer to your goal? Have a great week, everyone. And again, thank you so much to Scott and to Q. Bye.